Oh gosh. Okay. So my current book that's out right now just barely scratches the surface of everything that's going on. I My current book scratches the surface on letting you know, well, on on everything. But it's enough to give you a very loose framework of what we're in, what's going on, and how I'm surviving it. Doesn't mean that other people are. People are dying suddenly every day. But the current book that I have out today is a very loose framework of how I'm surviving this climate change, and then also developing another storyline that must be developed if one wants to survive all this. Because remember, all storylines are coupled with people mirroring the intention and the outcome. And they have a very predictable outcome. And of course, the intention is based upon the politics and religion and science that's out there. And so what I'm trying to do now is to develop another storyline, which is all what religions are, and politics and science is just storylines that are matched in something that has been researched through our PhDs and the government, and then there's a specific intention and outcome. And so, wow. I mean, it's kind of crazy to even, I don't know. Good morning, Audrey. It's good to see you. And so I'm going to read this. Well, I don't know. I was going to say this. We're all clones. We all are. We're all clones. We all came from the same ancestors. It was just a whole dying and reproducing. And then being innovated with specific programming in politics, religion, and science, given certain genomic qualities to then develop a phenotypical characteristic, a hair color, behavior, skin color because of geographical location, and then, of course, the plant material and the animals, as far as the food supply, also offer the diversity in the phenotypical characteristics. And then we have everything classified in specific species and in animals. And so you have the mammals, the reptiles, the amphibians, the insects, the bacteria. And then you have the universe. And it's interesting, somebody on my Facebook who I actually live not too far from, who lives up there in North Ohio by the lake, she posted a picture of a close-up of a star. And and it just then clicked, because I remember when John and I and other people were going back and forth a few years ago about the universe and about the stars and the sun and what's matter and dark matter and whatever else. And then there's scientific names around them and all that. And then you get caught up in the electrons, the neutrons, the positrons, or the protons and all that, and getting caught up in the minutia, getting caught up in the rabbit holes, and then you get lost in that. So then it's trying to become grounded, not get too lost down the rabbit holes, and start looking at the bigger picture. And so when she posted that picture of those what look like faces in like a blue type of color of that star, because it's a really hot star, I guess. Yeah, blue is hot, supposedly. And I'm thinking of and I was looking at all the different pictures of bacteria, like the COVID and all the other bacteria, the mycoplasma. And I always saw similarities of the cells and the viruses and the stars out there in the universe. And so everything is from the micro to the macro, and it's all matter, states of matter. There's like the first state of matter, the third state of matter, the second state of matter, and all that. And there's some really basic stuff like what's the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. And then the fourth state of matter is basically plasma. Okay, and so mycoplasma is the program states of matter. And so then realizing, holy shit, what all of us are taking on each other's information, whether exchanging it verbally or even microbially, and how influential is our energy to either try to convert somebody or destroy them, and them too, how influential is their energy trying to convert me and become influential to me? And I'm just like, oh my God. And so all mycoplasma in your body are entities of past, present, and future trying to jockey for position, and when too influential, attempt to overthrow the host. That's what the whole cancer stuff is. That's a germline cell with its own little cabinet of somatic cells that can redouble itself 50 times before it has to go somewhere else and have something else come in. But during that 50 times it's trying to redouble itself, how much resources is it taking? How much infrastructure does it need to go through that process of redoubling itself? And so that's, oh my God, that makes sense as far as fast-moving cancers, because it's redoubling itself. So you imagine when someone allows all these foreign entities in our body because of all the remedies, of course, all the exposure to diversity, which you can't really help. So you got to be able to regulate that information, but also the environment also will be the one to determine the rate of replication. Okay, but in a higher frequency environment, the rate of replication of these somatic cells redoubling itself is then what's causing the turbo cancers. Holy shit. And so all mycoplasma in your body are entities of past, present, and future trying to jockey for position, and when too influential, attempt to overthrow the host. And so pain and release is the attempts of the body to push out those entities to save the host, because if it's redoubling itself, especially when it's newly born and it's able to realize its influence and its potential, just like those kids out there, teenagers, and they go and try to go and galvanize, hang out with all their cliques and their friends and all that shit. That's just like the cancers in your body when you get diagnosed or you get a pain and the body tries to release, and then you attempt to take antibiotics to try to interrupt the process. But then you're developing another beast, another problem that will be antibiotic resistance and then redouble itself. And the mycoplasma is the mirror. It's causing the redouble efforts to even triple, quadruple, and then wow. And so pain and disease is the attempts to the body to push out those entities to save the host. But the host, under the direction of the system regulating human life, has always instructed the host to suppress one's immune system until the system must go in and remove the invader via surgery or make it stronger via remedies and medication, thus adding to the coffers of the Genome Database for further observation in another host. Because again, that's why they encourage us to have relationships, marriages, and boyfriends and girlfriends and girlfriends and girlfriends and boyfriends, because they want to see the outcome of that union, whether it's some kind of disease or a child. And it can be interchangeable. It's not just like one will develop only disease and one will only develop. You can develop children from 2 males based upon the rat experiments. You can develop children from 2 females based upon the rat experiments. So all of that is possible. So it's not just saying one type of union is the only way. And so, so that's why because they wanted to observe nature and nurture. They wanted to see how 2 entities get together, develop an offspring, what they're teaching those entities, what kind of behaviors manifest, what kind of specialties and gifts does that offspring give off, and could the system use it? And if they became too influential, if the offspring and even the parents become too influential in whatever manner, then the system regulates. And when the system regulates, it just depends. Sometimes it's like, oh, see you later, unalived, or it's, hey, we'll take money from you, or we'll threaten to put you in jail, or threaten whatever. Okay? That's how the system regulates entities that are too influential. And so your job as a host, is to now understand that was the old programming. Using you and your family for human experimentation via the medical, holistic, energy healing world of spirituality and absolution. And if you want to save yourself or believe you are the best and strongest clone out there, because you are a clone, okay, start feeding the host all food, attempt to not treat disease, and release the programming, and you program yourself for life, not death. because I know exactly what I was programmed for. I knew what I had to deal with the last 49 years, and it was some pretty intense shit. The demons within me were like you would not believe. And trying to deal with them and trying to release them and then trying to figure out, oh my God, when you're tortured by these demons inside and you think it's out there and you're looking for the relief out there, but it's you have to release those demons. That's, oh my God. Yeah. And so I knew what I was programmed for. And so I, like I said in that post, I was not meant to understand this the way I do. I was meant to die from cancer or die from a spouse, from a domestic violence situation, or die from, who knows, from something else. Die suddenly. Or be so wrapped up in being the savior, being a Mother Teresa saving the world because I came from such a crazy background. To go just because I wasn't going to have kids. So what else was I going to do? Go save the world like I was the last 7 years. Until I released that programming of trying to be a savior while someone else thinks I'm a Satan, and vice versa. Dealing with the Satans out there who claim to be the saviors. And then making all the connections with the Walking Dead, Mimic, and all the zombie apocalypse, and shit, I don't know, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars, and the Attack of the Clones. Oh gosh, and The Matrix, and then watching Lucy, and of course all the movies, all the vampire stories, all the allegory and politics, religion, science, everything was trying to tell us this in so many different ways. And so right now in this environment, all of us are fighting to survive each other's demons. And so right now during this great reset, you are being set free, but will you live on this earth to see freedom, or float around in the universe full of plasma hoping to get another chance at life on this earth? So now you know why I won't socialize too much in large crowds. Because remember last time, in August, I blew up like a Stay Puft Marshmallow. I blew up like a total balloon, and I had the hives next. Like I said, there's no way I'm going to take on that many entities all at once in this environment, especially not with this crazy mycoplasma pneumonia floating around. And China's already going through their own lockdowns again, or being warned that that may happen, and please stash food for 10 days or what have you, because they might have to go through that same thing again that they went through in 2021 and 2020. So yeah, so now you know why I won't socialize too much in large crowds for a long period of time, because I'm fighting for my life. Absolutely, every 3 o'clock in the morning, it's crazy. Every morning at 3 a.m., like last night, I released those demons in the middle of the night, blowing my nose, and then a few hours later, releasing out of my colon around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Right now, very minimal hives. One hive today, that was it. Hive today, that was it. But if I get around too much diversity, I have to start releasing all those invaders, and then that self-induced suffering, and then even bad choices can be made from that, because I get locked onto something and think something and go too overboard like I did with that Jello. And so that's why people age over time, and they look different, because those energies are taking over possession. So when you saw what I looked like when I was taking on other people's entities, my face changed, maybe got bloated, maybe certain things were going on. Okay, maybe my eyeballs were going all cross-eyed and stuff, which I know sometimes it looks like that in some of the videos or even some of the pictures. And yeah, when you're full of all these different entities, these mycoplasmas mirroring somebody else's energy that found a way into your body and stayed in there and wants to take over, you're taking on a cabinet and a president, a germline cell and its downline of somatic cells that, again, have 50 chances to redouble itself before it exhausts its resources. Okay. And so, yeah, and so that's why people look different. And that's why when you see them like 1 year later, 2 years later, and they age out, or things start happening, they get growths, or they're losing their hair, or other things are going on, those are the entities inside of them that are not only changing the external characteristics, but also breaking down the internal infrastructure, which is why then people get transplants, they get implants, they get operations, they get surgeries, Okay, because those invaders, those entities that were not regulated by the person, have taken over and are destroying them from the inside. Okay? But remember, you were given a story. All right, about that's okay. See, there's nothing wrong with that, right? People are like, there's nothing wrong with that. Aging is supposed to happen. Okay, yeah, when you're told to trap those little beasts inside of you and not regulate, and okay, and you're also given a lifestyle around that. You're getting rewarded enormously. You're getting paid enormously to be that kind of guinea pig. I mean, that's the thing with chasing money, power, wealth, and baubles and social capital, is that you're being used as a fucking guinea pig. You're being used as an experiment. And the only way to make experimentation palatable and okay is if a person gets paid for it. Do you know how much redundancy is out there? You know how many insurance agencies are out there? How many insurance agents are out there? You know how many trucking companies are out there? You know how many government officials are out there? You know how many service industry workers are out there? There's so much redundancy. All they're doing is observing you and your background in whatever industry that you happen to gravitate towards based upon your geographical location, socioeconomic status, and your potential ability within your genomic sequence. So they're just observing you, and they're taking your information and writing it down and making notes on how they're going to develop the future. Okay? But remember, you're given a story. So everything is perfectly normal to you until you're given a different story. Choose your own adventure. That's what you're up against, and that is what I'm up against. And that's what your children are up against. The environment has changed drastically. As I'm sure the Died Suddenly groups have clued you in on this. So 2024 is coming up. And we're in wintertime over here, right? It's supposed to be below freezing, at least some kind of snow, and we're going to be at 56 degrees as if we were in California in the middle of winter. That's California weather. I moved from California to fucking California now. I mean, before it wasn't. And so we're in climate change. And it's messing up people's immune system, which is why the change is necessary if you can handle it. Okay? And so I have to focus on some of the basics so we have some kind of foundation to work from. So plasma is often called the fourth state of matter, okay? So these are the first states of matter, solid, liquid, and gases. And then are programmed based upon the plasma. Then there's mycoplasma. What is mycoplasma? It's what mirrors what is influential, relatively influential. And sometimes when you have a really influential entity, colony-forming units of entities, and it could be the viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. None of them are bad. Don't try to attack them. You have to regulate them, but not attack them. But what happens is, let's say the viruses. Hey, no questions, Kimberly, okay? We're not doing any questions. I'm not curing anyone's anything. Read my book, okay? But anyways, the mycoplasma, oh god, shit. Okay, yeah. So a mycoplasma mirrors anything that is too influential. Okay? It mirrors anything too influential. And so that's why I call it my, and then co, and plasma. All right? And so it's like you are plasma, and then it mirrors whatever's too influential. So when you regulate it, you pull out the crap, like I have in my book, and you eat all food, and you deal with the pain of release and retention. And if you have heart issues and neurological issues and brain issues, you got to talk to your doctor, let them know what you're doing so they can help you through that process. But not everybody can do what I'm doing because they don't want to deal with the pain and suffering of release. And people don't want to feel the heat. They don't want to feel any kind of uncomfortableness. And so not everybody can do what I'm doing. But the thing is, people need to regulate the mycoplasma that's mirroring the influence that's causing all the isms in their body. And not everybody can handle that process. So I will never, ever try to recommend this for people. They have to read my information, understand it's going to be a painful suffering that's going to go on. And you may not have the infrastructure in your world, in your body, in your mind, or spirit. So that's why I don't answer any questions about, does jelly juice do this? Because jelly juice is not being sold like that, like it was way back in 2018. The jelly juice was there to activate the immune system so your body can work the way it's supposed to, but then you have to support it with all food and release, the way I have in my book, and deal with every single symptoms that you may not be, expecting or want. And again, that's not for me to say that you should feel pain and you should deal with suffering, because you may not be able to handle it. And so there is nothing that I'm going to say about anyone's situation. Talk to a doctor, Kimberly. Okay? And so mycoplasma is basically the mirroring of anything influential. And so you never attack something that is trying to mirror your body, because then it will mirror even attacking you and cause destruction to you. And so plasma is often called the fourth state of matter, along with solid liquids and gases. Just as a liquid will boil, change it into a gas when energy is added. Heating a gas will form a plasma, a soup of positively charged particles or ions and negatively charged particles, electrons. And so plasma is considered the first state of matter. It's the most common state of matter in the universe, making up an estimated of 99.99% of the visible universe. Plasma is also the state from which the other three states of matter evolved. Okay, so plasma is also the state from which the other three states of matter evolved. Three states of matter, solids, liquid, and gases, are the three states of matter. In solids, the particles are tightly packed together. Okay, in liquids, the particles have more movement, while in gases, they are spread out. Particles in chemistry can be atoms, ions, or molecules. And that's what makes up everything in your body, mind, and spirit, your universe. And there's programming, nature, and nurture. And right now, in our society, we have been programmed to regulate life and also encourage people to systematically relieve their pain and suffering, and then eventually end up in the morgue someday as painless as possible. And I'm saying, if you want to live, it's not about taking away the pain. But again, I can't tell you that. You have to support it with all the food supply. And if you already have issues with food because of allergies and stories around the food because of all the activism, I'm not here to try to convert you from a belief system that you already hold. Okay, so nature and nurture is just training your mycoplasma to mirror behaviors and belief. And so if you believe that all food is poison, that you should remedy all disease, and you should be able to go out there and do whatever the hell you want with no repercussions as far as health-wise, then that's a programming that I can't just convert you from. I can't convert you from relieving all pain to now dealing with pain. I can't convert you from being allergic to milk to now finally being able to handle milk. It's something that it's a transition, and it's a process, it's a painful process, and that's not something that I can do. When you want to take away the pain and take away the suffering and take away any kind of energy that causes uncomfortableness, you have to see a doctor who will then systematically take out your organs, take away all the pain and suffering, potentially even disable your immune system in ways that you can't feel pain, and then allow you to rest in peace when there's nothing else to treat anymore. Cures are only temporary in dynamic environments. They were always temporary even in the old world, but the environment was not as aggressive, so you had a lot longer in between each diagnosable conditions to potentially turn it around and prolong your life. But that's still all relative. What does that mean? Okay, but in this environment, when it's so dynamic and the climate is changing so aggressively, causing then the redoubling of those somatic cells to happen faster, like turbocharged cancer, people are not getting ahead. They're not getting ahead of the turbo cancers, and so they die suddenly. And that's essentially what's going on, is that people are given the chance to live, but they're not regulating their immune system and releasing the demons like I have in my book. Not doing so much jelly juice, because that will cure you. What does that mean? It means it will trap that infection and trap those entities inside your body, and it will cause more harm. I'm not saying jelly juice is poison. It's just that in this environment, you don't want to cure anything. You want to release the demons and eat food. But again, you might have heart issues, other issues that you're going to have to deal with that I can't tell you should deal with. And that's something you have to talk to your doctor about, that I can't say, yeah, you can do jelly juice, will it do this? Nah, I can't tell you. There's no guarantee. I don't even know what your intention is. If your intent to take away the pain, go see a doctor. But don't go to me to take away your pain. What I do is I say, hey, immune system activation like it was meant to, feed and release the demons, and stay home and stay safe, because the more you go out there, the more you're taking on more entities, the more you're going to have to fight to stay alive. And that's what the whole Jefferson Starship, okay, when I did that Facebook reel about mycoplasma, pneumonia specifically, nothing's going to stop us now, because that's really, when you think about it, everyone has mycoplasma and they all have imbalances in their bacteria, and that's why they have diseases. They have to pull out that crap and eat food and rest and feel everything. And if you have so many things you're responsible for, you probably cannot afford to be down. I remember a couple of years ago, again, I was down for a whole month when you think about it, but for the first couple of weeks, I was down, really down. And I had like no strength, no hardly anything. It was bad. It was bad because the pneumonia, the mycoplasma pneumonia that was pathogenic, because it was mirroring the imbalances. It wasn't like mycoplasma was bad. It was bad. It was mirroring the imbalances, causing then the exponential aggressive energy that was trying to take over. And then my body was fighting back. And how I fought back, I put myself in that shower and pulled out the shit, and then started eating, because I had no appetite during that time. I could eat food, but I didn't have the will to eat it. That's the difference when people have so much mycoplasma pneumonia, is that, yeah, they could eat, but they don't have the will to eat. So then it's anorexia. There's self-induced anorexia out there because the mycoplasma has become so exponentially influential because of the out of control bacteria that it's mirroring. Okay. And so the whole Jefferson Starship was totally right on, because the video was mirroring Mannequin. He was copying Mannequin, that 1980s movie. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so perfect. And so I know Kim responded to her. And she said, what did she say? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. And so anyways, okay. And so Kim posted that picture of that star that looks like has all these faces on it. And I'm like, oh my God, those are ghostly entities of past, present, and future ghosts and civilizations. You see, people think that, oh, when you die, you're going to go off to heaven. Okay, whatever that means. You're just going to go to the upside down. What is that? Are you going to be privileged enough to just be a ghost and float around and look at everybody through their windows and walk around? Well, we see that, but maybe they're trapped in one area. Will you dead as a ghost, will you have the freedom to fly around and go to different places? You can't touch. Ghosts can't touch. I mean, if you're strong enough, I don't even think are you that influential to move things? Yeah, you have energetic force to move things, but will you have the luxury to touch? I guess if you're just an energy that's able to see stuff but not eat and swim in the water, or touch. You don't have to touch another person, but my gosh, going outside and breathing the air is such a nice thing. Going into some water is such a nice thing. Eating some really good food is such a cool thing. I've seen stuff. Yeah, I mean, how many nice places can you go to before that gets boring? How long do you want to just sit and look at that water? It's the learning, it's the interaction, it's the whatever that we have. It's some kind of relatedness is what sets us apart from the dead. Okay? And so when you're dead, you might end up as a fucking star. Like I said, like with the other belief system, like, what is it? Reincarnation. Do you want to be reincarnated into, some lower form like an animal who is now under the control of some abusive person? Not necessarily. You don't want to come back as a lower life form. You made it. You're human. You made it. Why would you go back to being a lower life form? But people do, because they think that their religion is that they're supposed to die someday. And you can't convert people from that. You can't. Okay? And so I said, pay attention to the comments on Kim's page. People see faces, and I do too, and that could be where all the ghosts and old souls live. People have died in the past living in a star, a virus, ectoplasm. The universe is full of all the different ghosts, civilizations are past and present, and the stars are like viruses and bacteria. It's all plasma. plasma in your body, your blood plasma. You have plasma out there. I mean, when you think about all those little orbs that maybe you can catch as intelligent energy through electrical means, but also when the sun shines and you see all the dust particles, that's plasma too. And when you go into a water, that's a lot of heavier plasma, like a water source. Then we go out in space, that's its own plasma, because there's water vapor in space. There's all these different gases, and there's planets and stars and moons and things that orbit and all the, then you get all the physics and the astrophysics and all that. And so I studied a lot of that a couple of years ago, the astrophysics, and then studied Einstein and all these different people that gave us a glimpse of how our universe was developed. And so that way we understand the laws and rules of physics and biology and chemistry. So that way we understand how to keep ourselves alive and also develop functional and evolutionary civilizations. And yeah, save ourselves from mortality. And so the whole thing with taking antibiotics is you're just developing another life form that's going to be working against you. And that's why with antibiotics, you're just developing another germline cell with its somatics, with its own little cabinet of somatic cells that become too numerous. They'll turn cancerous later. Why would it turn cancerous later? Because people don't like to activate their immune system to release the demons. They don't like to feel the pain and suffering, and they're always treating their disease, causing then more colony-forming units of germline cells with, again, its little cabinet of somatic cells that need to redouble itself. And that's a lot of redoubling its efforts, especially in a highly influential environment. So why there's antibiotic resistance? Because all you're doing is replacing one enemy with another. As soon as it becomes out of control, it's not the enemy at the time, but it becomes one because the same mentality is still practiced. You're disrupting a process versus allowing your process to work through what it needs to, weakening and atrophying your defenses. So when people try taking antibiotics because they're trying to fight against some kind of feelings of disease, then yeah, you might get some kind of relief, cure. That's what the cures market is just trying to give people some kind of relief and relative equilibrium. But then remember, like you, when someone tries to hurt you or tries to attack you, you build up a defense not to get attacked again. Okay, that's what these bacteria do when they're attacked, and they'll feel the attack. Maybe they might be slowed down or even sort of killed, but not really, because there's still other entities out there that will see that and be like, oh no, I'm not going to end up like that. And they build a different strategy of survival. And that's what happens, is that these antibiotics cause then more strategies of survival of those bacteria that are in your body. Yeah, the antibiotics make them smarter and find ways to strategize against being attacked like that. And so then you can't attack anything in your body with high heat or anything else. You actually have to release those demons and feel the pain. Feel it, like last year, last November, I had some major hives that came up, like major. And then they come up every so often through the climate change and then hanging out with people. But just within the last week, they have diminished, like, greatly. I posted some recent pictures of those hives, but they haven't come up like that. And my husband's been around. I've heard the climate change. Okay, so I'm releasing some of those entities that I took on through the remedies market, through the supplements market, through even my genetic predispositions from past lives. Okay, and so antibiotics attack bacteria by disrupting essential processes or structures in the bacterial cell. So this is the actual formal definition. This either kills the bacterium or slows down the bacterial growth. This helps the body's natural immune system fight the infection. Well, that's their way of characterizing it. But they don't talk about what happens later on when there's antibiotic resistance, and then that specific defense system then turns into the enemy that has to be regulated. That's why all the different V's. There's influenza 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not because of V's, because of the people strengthening and making those bacteria more strategic that you have to build another defense for through the therapies market. That's why it's just a never-ending game where you're attacking disease versus releasing them out of your body. No questions, hon. Every single disease out there, Kimberly, every single. Let's just keep the questions to a minimum, okay, Kimberly? Because I'm not here to treat your disease. I'm not here to talk about your disease. What I'm here for is to say that what the world that we're living in. The world we're living in is mycoplasma mirroring every single influential disease that you have. And then either you're going to attack it with all the different remedies or surgically take it out and not want to feel pain and you want to stay with your lifestyle and belief system, whatever, or you read my book and figure out what I did and listen to this information. But everything out there is not bad unless you don't regulate the life. And regulate means so many different things, different people. You can do it the traditional method in the medical holistic energy healing world, which I think you're in that traditional method because you're asking me traditional questions, or you attempt to understand where I'm coming from, and that means you have to listen, not ask any questions at this point. Because even if you ask questions, you're asking from a point of view of remedying a disease. Okay, you're asking from a point of view of remedying a disease, trying to differentiate between one disease or another, and then trying to find a remedy for it or use the jilly juice against it. And that's not where I'm coming from. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm not your doctor. I'm not anything like that. I'm trying to say that the remedies market and the antibiotics market and all the different energy healing market has made disease so much more aggressive and so diversified that it becomes out of control. And now you have serial killers out there, people who are angry, hunting for the enemy, trying to be the savior, and I'm not trying to go there. And not everybody can do what I'm doing because they don't have the infrastructure. And I couldn't tell you if you had one because, again, you got to watch my videos and read my book. And even then, that may not even penetrate. So I don't even know how to help people. I really don't. I'm not trying to help people. I'm just here as a representation. But I'm not trying to help anyone because help is all relative to what your intention is. And my intention was to activate my immune system, not cure it. Because when you cure something, the things inside redouble its efforts and they become faster and more aggressive and they destroy. You never want to cure anything unless it's FDA approved, and even then, that's not always going to help people. Whatever that means. All right? And so, what is mycoplasma made up of? Hydra. It's made up of plasma membrane, organelles, right? And DNA, double-stranded DNA, proteins and lipids and carbohydrates and RNA. That's the mimicry. RNA is the mimicry. That's the mycoplasm. And so what are you going to mimic? Are you going to mimic a political, religious, and scientific belief system? Are you going to mimic a behavior? Are you going to mimic an activist stance? Are you going to mimic an intention, an outcome, a specific measurable result? What are you mimicking? And so what am I mimicking? See, there is nothing that I'm mimicking because I'm developing another evolution. And how do you develop another evolution? Is you got to feel the pain. You got to eat all the food. You got to release the demons the way I have in my book. Okay? And sometimes it requires pulling the shit out. You got to stay home and stay safe. So you're not mimicking somebody else's intentions and outcome and specific measurable results. There is no one out there I'm mimicking. When I was out there when I was a kid, I was mimicking, the rockers, the rappers, mimicking dance moves. When I was at the dances, the school dances in junior high, I was copying people, on what they were doing because I wasn't programmed. I was programmed to be cute, programmed to be someone's wife or girlfriend, and maybe programmed to do some kind of academics because that was shoved down my throat. Even though I got a GED and didn't go to college for 3 years, but I had all that shoved down my throat. So what was I going to mimic? So I was always going from place to place, trying to trying to be like people, but it wasn't authentic because I wasn't like them. Okay? And so that's the thing is, what are you mimicking? So are you going to be an evolution and develop another storyline, or are you going to mimic somebody else? And so that's what mycoplasma is what are you mimicking? And so what does mycoplasma eat? The serum provides mycoplasma with the cholesterol and long-chain fatty acid required for growth. The optimum pH for mycoplasma is basically 7.8, 8 point. Okay, cells may die when pH drops below 7.0. That's like a neutral type of thing. Mycoplasma are aerobic or facultative anaerobic microorganisms, but they usually grow better in an aerobic environment, which means there's oxygen. They can't survive in an anaerobic environment. And so, yeah, the lactobacillus at the J juice, the fermentation, that's an anaerobic environment because it's supposed to be oxygen free. And that developed life. That's what they were testing for in the lab, was for probiotic or lactobacillus bacteria. And there was 300 million colony forming units. Does heat destroy mycoplasma? Yeah, heat can get rid of mycoplasma. It also gets rid of you. That's what the whole oncology is, and the target approach of all those Rife machines and those energy healing shit, was that when you have mycoplasma that's mirroring some entity that has its own, immortal germline and somatic cabinet, then it has it turns into a tumor. Those are immortal germline cells, are tumors, growths. And when you're not regulating your system by releasing the demons, the way I have in my book, then those things then coagulate, and then they have to take heat, like a target approach, or they use chemotherapy and run all these different mustard gas and things through your immune system, thus causing you to lose your hair and break down your system. But it's trying to target those germline cells that are causing people's cancers, because the redoubling itself up to 50 times is happening faster because it's trying to take over. I mean, it's always a fight to the death. That's what cancer is you and an entity fighting to the death, trying to take over the host. Okay, and so when you're thinking about climate change, and it's also accelerating the growth, the redoubling itself 50 times, and then you're taking on other people's entities out there because you're breathing in the ectoplasm, breathing in their microbes. Okay, and then all that energy is sucking the life out of that person. So they don't have an infrastructure strong enough to deal with that redoubling itself 50 times when they're taking on so much stuff, and they have diversity in their body. Then the person becomes skinnier and skinnier, or bigger and bigger, because now they have all these diversified organisms that have all these little presidents that are working against other little presidents. Like I said, the immortal germline cells are like a president, and the somatic cells are the cabinet. And when you have trillions of presidents with its own cabinet in your body, that's obesity. And then you also see the phenotypical characteristics they start changing, because all those entities are fighting against each other, causing then a breakdown in the infrastructure. So even though heat can get rid of mycoplasma, it can also get rid of you if you don't know how to deal with that energy conversion and provide resources for you to release the demons and then feed you, the host, and take on the programming of the environment, because you are like a vessel taking on the programming of your community, of your environment, of the economics of the day, the physics of the day, the climate of the day, the culture of the day. Okay, all you are is a vessel, but how much diversity can you handle before then you pop? Okay, and so some strategies of preventing mycoplasma, right? Contamination include heat at 116 degrees for 30 minutes. Holy shit. 104 degrees for 10 minutes. Oh my God. So when someone lives in Arizona, or they live in Florida, and they're all just, gelatinous, and they have a lot of mycoplasma mirroring that gelatin, yeah, there's a lot of people that are suffering, dying suddenly, because they don't have an infrastructure to deal with that kind of energy conversion. And that mycoplasma has redoubled. It's influential, exponential. And not that it's bad, it's just that the person has a lot of bacteria that's out of control and the infrastructure is compromised. And so there's so they're like hypertonic or hypotonic, not isotonic. And so they're either just really skinny and hardly anything to them, so that's more like the hypotonic, or they're so muscly and beefy, so they're hypertonic, and then you have blood vessels break, or you have just atrophy, and you have things that just take up so much resources and there's no release, and so they're like a blob. It's that's why you have to have not too much resistance and not too little resistance. You got to have enough to keep you going in the environment and to keep you regulated. And so you never want to destroy or attack mycoplasma. You want to regulate the bacteria that's mirroring. Okay, so say you have, like I had candida so much, or I thought I did. I probably did have candida. Yeah, I probably did have candida, but then the mycoplasma hominis or genitalium mirrored the candida, so it made it really, really aggressive. And so I guess you could say MRSA is kind of the same thing. It's just there's a bacteria that you're supposed to have, but it's out of control, and the mycoplasma mirrored it. Because remember, mycoplasma is like a follower. It looks for the most influential entity and it follows it. And it mirrors it. It replicates like it. It's like those movies out there, Mimic. It's like the clones out there that hang out together. And they buy at the same clothing stores, and they act the same, dress the same, have the same types of interests in music and whatever. That's mycoplasma. People who are copying each other. And so when you see people run in groups like that, that's all mycoplasma, all mirroring each other, getting in sync together. That's group dynamics. And that's programming. And so it just, you can be parts of groups that will help further your life, but then let you part of that group for too long, it might take over and destroy you. So that's why, I went from group to group to group to group, friend to friend. You too, Kimberly, thanks. Friend to friend, boyfriend to boyfriend, whatever. Didn't stay too long anywhere else because people would cannibalize you. And so that's why it's good to have people on Facebook that you can take on information and release, and they don't allow them to become too influential. You don't want to become too influential either, because you don't want to take over somebody else. And in my opinion, people should keep evolving. But if they can't evolve, then they get stuck in their family, their friends, their associations, their politics, religions, and science. And so, and that's why people kind of go over the cliff together when they're stuck in the group mentality. So if you can pull yourself away from the group mentality, and if you can pull yourself away from really influential family that would cannibalize you, you might be able to save yourself. But again, that's something that I couldn't tell someone to do. They have to do it for themselves. And so, yeah. And so I said last night or this morning, 3 a.m., nose blowing. Hubby came home yesterday, no hives, just a nice blowing of the nose, 3 a.m. Mucus is the offspring from the exposure to another person, no stuffy nose. And so I have an upper respiratory system, so I will never drown in my own mucus. So I have an open upper respiratory system. And so you hear me sometimes when I blow my nose, I blow it really hard, and I blow it on both sides. And I have a napkin all the time. Remember, I always have this all the time to blow. And when I blow so hard, sometimes I fart. And that's exactly what needs to happen. So, there is communication between down there, up there, so you can push out the poop. Because that's where all those bacteria that become numerous resides in your poop, then cause the mycoplasma to mirror the most influential thing. And that's why there's people out there that were taken down by regulators out there, by the government, because they were too influential in their politics, religion, and science, and they were out there pounding the gavel and radicalizing people against a person, place, or thing. And so we had people in the past that were very influential and were giving, they were expressing and pleading for the world to treat them with respect. But then, as you know, everything can become extremely extreme. And so you really want to have the awareness of things, but not let it become a religion to the point where you destroy somebody else because of that belief system. Okay? And so like any like civil rights and women's rights and men's rights and religious rights and all that, you don't want to get too influential on either end. And that's what the system regulates, always regulating, whether it's through oncology, surgeries, or through the government means, through the law and all that stuff. And sometimes outside the law that you'll never be able to prove that was anyone that was an official. There's black budgets to things. There's experiments out there. And so Lyme disease, I'm going to point this out because some people right now are dealing with Lyme disease. Mycoplasma species, including mycoplasma fermentans, have been identified in blood-sucking arthropods. Remember, mycoplasma is in the animals, the insect world, in the plant world, in humans. One representative are ixodes, ticks, which is also transmit Lyme disease, babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, and bartonellosis. So the bacteria mycoplasma of the class mollicutes were once thought to be viruses due to their ability to pass through filters that block the passage of ordinary bacteria because of their deformable membrane. They are now known as the smallest free-living, self-replicating fastidious bacteria. Their lack of cell wall also renders traditional cell wall active antibiotics useless. Mycoplasma species, including mycoplasma fermentans, have been identified in blood-sucking arthropods. Okay? And so their lack of cell wall also renders traditional cell wall active antibiotics useless. So that's why you don't use antibiotics against mycoplasma. And that's why people have made all this mycoplasma so diverse and so strong and transmissible because of all the medicines and the herbal remedies and the supplements. And so I just release the demons in the toilet, or blow my nose in my napkin. But I don't ever treat any of my disease, anything, because it will come back to bite me later. It'll become so numerous later. And so as far as resistance, see, you guys are trained in resistance to disease, uncomfortableness, trained to resist the government if it was giving you laws that you didn't agree with, whatever. All of us were trained to resist authority on some level because of all the rules, the regulations, didn't understand what they were or why, didn't care. So even if you had a great life and a great childhood, you were taught to resist somebody different. You were taught to resist disease. You were taught to resist cancer. So that's why people who had a great life or say they have a great life, they're going to the oncology clinic. They're going to all the different remedies. They're hanging out in their groups of people in their little homogenized environment, resisting diversity. People even here in Ohio that's never left Ohio, will never travel anywhere else. Resist new information, resist new people. Because I've asked somebody before, do you ever want to travel somewhere different? They're like, no. You don't ever want to leave Ohio just to see something different. Let's say go to Asia or go to Europe or go to some other town. And the person's like, no. Yeah. So they're resisting diversity. So of course they're going to be homogenized. Of course they're going to be intolerant. Of course they're going to be racist. Of course they're going to be attacking anything that's different. And so you were trained to be resistant to new information, new people, new ideas. You just wanted to stay homogenized. Well, someone like me was trained to resist the mainstream, was trained to resist everything, rules and regulations. And when you had so many rules and regulations and you weren't bribed into doing your homework and all that, weren't given everything, then I'm resisting. You saw what I was resisting. You see everything that I'm resisting out there. Just look at my Facebook the last 7 years. So all of us have been trained in resistance in some form or another. Okay, even those with wonderful childhoods have been taught to resist someone different, resist sickness, hardship, evolution. All resistance was meant to destroy. But before you get destroyed, if that's your intention, especially when you think you should die someday, the system will pull out all the resources you offer to them through that resistance. Just like with the whole communist thing, whatever, prairie fire. This was a resistance against the British or American imperialism, right? Okay, so this is like its playbook Peripheral is a major resistance playbook on how to resist an entity like the American government, the American imperialism. And then guess what? The New World Order, they figured out the playbook and they used it for their own situation to how to guide resistance and how to use it based and give people choices. If you want to resist, fine, but you do it in a controlled way and you can't take anyone down with you, but you can resist, and resistance is futile, so you won't survive it, and will also accelerate the environment too. The earth will, and you'll resist so hard against all your diseases that you won't survive it, and then there's died suddenly. And so this is the ultimate resistance that will cause all-out annihilation when used in a specific manner based upon the context. Okay? So, before you get destroyed, if that's your intention, especially when you think you should die someday, the system will pull out all the stops, pull out all the resources you offer to them. Then you're free to go in whatever manner you choose, so as long as it's with your consent, not taking somebody down with you. So if you want to resist disease, you got to sign the dotted line and get that surgery. You want to resist disease, you buy that whatever remedy, and then it tells you all the different side effects, and then when you're buying it and you're warned of all the side effects, then you have nothing to say, no room to complain, because you consented to taking that remedy, you consented to that surgery, you broke the law, so now you're getting retribution, now you're getting justice. Okay, the system makes sure that you consent. And so when you get married to someone, you're consenting to some kind of sexual relationship. You're consenting to some kind of somebody taking your resources in whatever manner. And so even then, marriages, which is a consensual type of resource taking human cannibalization, then you have to regulate how much those resources somebody else is taking from you and you're taking from somebody else. And that's between them. And some people don't even realize that that's what's going to destroy them, is their relationship. But you can't tell them that. They signed on the dotted line. They got married to that person to love, honor, and obey. And there you go. The system is absolved from a person destroying themselves or being destroyed by their partner, unless that person regulates in their own marriage how the resources in their body, mind, and spirit and in their marriage gets used. And you see, some people don't survive their marriages. They die suddenly, if they get destroyed by a spouse. But again, they chose that partner. They chose that situation. They chose that lifestyle, that belief system. That they can't blame anyone but themselves if that's the life they chose. So now you see how strategic the system is when they're giving you all the options to consent or not to. And when you consent to whatever, there are ramifications. But you have to sign. You have to sign. You have to put your John Hancock on everything. Okay? And so then I said this, yeah. I wasn't supposed to know this. Remember, I had such bad PMDD with so many other issues, set up to be the bad guy in somebody else's world. Yeah, my sister. I was set up to be the bad sister. When you're, when you're put in a situation where they contrived a situation that somebody had to be the bad guy, or somebody had to admit something that never happened. That's what I'm saying. That's why when you're under that type of behavioral experimentation, you can't fucking win as a child. You can't win. So I was set up to be a bad guy with my sister and I. Because I was stronger. Well, obviously I was older, but more strategic. I already came from war. I knew how to survive. And my poor little sister didn't know what the fuck she was dealing with. She was up against my mother and all of her training. And then someone like me who's a survivor from war. Knew how to strategize survival. And so I was set up to be the bad guy in her world. I mean, oh God. And what do you do? What do you do as kids? When you're set up to be whatever as a child because your parents were trained in a certain way. Even when they didn't even know what the hell they were doing, but they were trained in a specific way. What do you do as a kid? Now you have to figure out how to get yourself out of that programming. And articulate what the hell happened, what was going on. And even some parents are going to have to be like, wow, I was taught this way. I'm so sorry, Johnny, Billy, Susie, of what I did. And I really apologize. Some parents were just trained that way because that's what they were taught. But do they have it within them to apologize to their kids for the hell they put them through? Probably not. The pride is too much, the memories are short, and death is long. So anyways, so I was set up to be the bad guy in somebody else's world. I was meant to try to make amends throughout my whole life, forever, saving the world, trying to be a Mother Teresa, saving people from the enemy, the demons. And then who was my enemy? Was my mother, or authority, if I got involved in politics that had a demon already set in place, or religion, or science. I never got into religion, but it's a science, like, oh, the V's are what caused all of my issues. And so the whole savior, the whole Mother Teresa, it started off that way. That was the actual programming. And it was my protocol that woke me up. I broke the spell. I broke the spell of the nuances of the Manson mystique. I don't listen to that song anymore with Charles Manson. I had to play that so it got out of my system. Now I don't even want to play that Manson song anymore. I'm done with it. And that's weird, right? Because now I'm playing the Jefferson Starship over and over and over and over again, looping in that, going like, holy shit. That's what's going on, is that we are dealing with this mycoplasma that's mirroring something that's influential in our body, causing then the extremism. Okay? But I'm done with the whole Manson shit. Now I'll use it as a reference to make my point, but it's not something that drives me anymore to really... I understand serial killers. Oh, I get it. And I understand what makes them. It's the violence that they're exposed to, the visual images, plus somebody coming down so hard on them and then developing an enemy that they see and has certain characteristics. And so when they see visual images and they have been thrashed by whoever, and then there's someone out there that fits that description, okay, of whatever enemy, if they'll go hunt for that, or if they get, they're opportunistic. See, that's the thing. Some of these serial killers are opportunistic. If there are people who are just unaware of how shit works, they'll they'll leave themselves open to be destroyed by somebody. But yeah, people like that, like myself and Bill Gates and other people that are out there that are saying whatever they say, that people are either mischaracterizing whatever. Yeah, there's people that don't like what people say, and you can't assume that they're going to try to kill you and all that shit. And if they do, then that's when you call the FBI. But you can't live in that kind of fear that because you say something different that someone's going to try to kill you for that, because that's just like stupid. Why would you live in that kind of fear? Okay? But you protect yourself. I mean, I don't go out there and go pound the gavel in the public. I don't put myself out there in the public. People have. Like that guy, what's his, Sloan Hooks? His name's Sloan? He's on YouTube, and he does a lot of the stories about celebrities and what they've done. And he'll go to the clubs. He's a gay guy, and he's open about it, of course. But he goes to the club. He went to the club and all that, and something happened to him. He was exposed, and people knew where he was, and he got hurt because they knew where he was. They knew where he, and so he left himself open. Okay, so if you're gonna have a thought process that people are not gonna like, and that will go against somebody else's belief system, well, you be very careful where you go. You be very careful who you hang out with. You be very careful with your movements. I don't assume because I have this thought process that I think is like potentially popular that other people are going to think the same way. And I would not go and put myself into a public situation. The stars that do that, shit happens. They get stalked, they get things done, whatever. Some of them died from crazy fans. All right, but you can't live in fear like that. You just protect your movement. That's why I say I'm not trying to hurt anyone here. I'm just trying to give you guys an opportunity to save yourself if you can. But there are things that their system is changing that there's a reason why. We have been a huge experiment. All of us have. Every single family out there is an experiment for the system. Every single one of them. That's what the whole 1950s was, is a whole planned community of suburbia. And you see some of the old reels where they're showing the 50s housewife here. You hear the background, so it sound like some 1950s dude that wears the glasses and the whole, Men in Black outfit, and they're saying, oh yeah, she's taking an ironing board out and she's ironing her clothes while she's waiting for her son to do homework. And then she's going to go and cook food and wait for the husband to come home so he can have a dinner before they go to bed. I mean, they're training people in the 1950s how to behave in a family. And then, of course, if they have disease, they go to the doctor. The doctor does whatever you do. They take the DNA and they also observe your lifestyle, your belief systems, your politics, religion, and science, and then that goes into all of the, there's just all the experiment databases, all the things, the culture stuff that they can go develop. I mean, the 1950s was huge, and then you have the 1960s and 70s, and then the 1980s and the 90s, and oh my God, now you see the outcome. Now we're here in the 20s, 2023, and you're realizing that the stars are no different than you are the Illuminati. You've been MK Ultraized, you've been cloned, you've been trauma-based programmed, you've been mirroring each other. The whole conspiracy world is all about mirroring somebody's belief system. Oh gosh, it's the enemy. The V's are the enemy. Bill Gates is the enemy. Jillian's the enemy. Alex Jones is the hero. I don't even see Alex Jones pointing out the whole P. Diddy thing, but he definitely was pointing out Epstein. But why don't I see the Alex Jones point out P. Diddy? What's up with that? He's going through his own bullshit. 50 Cent P. Diddy, or 50 Cent is trying to, saying, P. Diddy, I could do the whole, surviving P. Diddy, like surviving R. Kelly. But I have not seen Luke Rudkowski or anyone in the right-wing world mentioning what's going on with P. Diddy. And Kim died, and who knows how she died. Other women are that whole claim with Cassie. Okay? But yet, Epstein gets all this press from the Alex Jones crowd, but they're not even talking about P. Diddy. What's up with that? Okay? So, people are mirroring what it is that they're told is the enemy. And so they're told Epstein is the enemy, but not P. Diddy. That's just like followers. But I dare Luke Rudkowski or anyone in the right-wing world to go bring up P. Diddy. They're too fucking afraid. They're probably afraid they might get unalived by him. I'm not trying to bring up anything as far as his world because it's already out there. But I'm just surprised that I don't see any kind of press around that in the right-wing Alex Jones world. Makes you wonder why. Because they were told who the enemy was. And to them, P. Diddy is not the enemy. Epstein was the enemy. That's mycoplasma. And so my protocol gave me the allowance to learn from the world around me, not to resist it. And so I was never meant to be a serial killer, but to be charismatic if I could find my voice. And so I broke the spell of the nuances of the Manson mystique. And so my protocol gave me the allowance to learn from the world around me, not to resist it. I was taught to resist. My whole programming in my childhood was about resistance, and resistance is futile, and it's deadly. From that, I finally understood indefinite life. Okay, so that's why I ran away from home, because I had to resist against all the different coming down on me for not doing this or doing that or whatever, and all this shit. I just was like, I'm just done. I'm just done resisting. Now I gotta get the fuck out of here, because I'm tired of resisting. And so I was meant to be a fighter and be strong, but who knows what kind of fights I would have picked. Would I have picked a fight with the wrong person and be destroyed by them? I was probably supposed to end up with some kind of cancer and or sickness that would have destroyed my memory, potentially even be lost in addiction, or be destroyed by a spouse. I was probably supposed to die suddenly, especially when the climate changed. I remember everything now. I remember most things about my childhood. That's why I knew so much. That's why I know so much more than I should when you think about it. As far as this clone program, what do you mean by the clone program? Well, someone I knew close to me was writing books about the clone program. Or not about the clone, about clones. Creative writing about clones. Well, why would they do creative writing about clones? Unless they were involved in that kind of situation somewhere. That's speculation. There's no hard evidence to say there's an actual clone program, so I want to clarify that. But I know there is one. We all are Just look at all of us. We all are basically the same with different phenotypical characteristics, but we all have 12 different systems, and we're all been natured and nurtured into some kind of absolution or some kind of Satan or savior, and looking for the enemy, hunting for the enemy, and blaming and all that stuff. I mean, you're looking into the mirror, okay? All of us are looking into the mirror. And we've had hormone manipulation. Some of us are love, love, love. Some of us are hate, hate, hate. Some of us are all these different ways. The four humors. Okay? And then you have the archetypes. And so when you're getting academia spinning all these different things out, but it's all the same, and you're getting all the foods that are basically the same but different, and you're getting all the education that's the same but different, and the people are dealing with the same but different situations, but some are at a faster rate or a slower rate, and have a mishmash of different types of symptoms or things or energy levels. It's all the same shit. It's just energy. And so I just remember my childhood. And when you can survive all the shit in the world, one deserves the next life. And so I earned my freedom. I really paid my dues. I earned my freedom. I really earned my freedom. My personal invention saved my own life. And so Prince Constantine of Liechtenstein died suddenly at age 51. Okay, so we have a prince, royalty, from Europe's oldest royal families, died suddenly on Tuesday at the age of 51. 50, the magic number. Gen X or X-Men. And so if you're approaching 50, what are you doing differently? If you're beyond 50, what are you doing differently? If you're 50, have you done anything different? Because when you see these people with kids, and they're in their 30s and they're dying suddenly, and you see that they're skinny. If you're not 50, or even if you're like in your 30s and you're skinny with 3 kids in this environment, you gotta check yourself. But if you're my age and you've had 3 kids, or a little bit more before my age, and you had a few kids, you might be able to eke out a few more years, and who knows, there might be other upticks are going on, and it's hard to say. But they said back in the bubonic plague days, when you reach a certain age, people can live beyond that. They said certain people, if they reach a certain age, they were able to withstand what's going on. If they didn't make it to a certain age, and they would die at some point earlier before they reached a certain point. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. And so misfolded proteins could make dementia transmissible. Scientists suggest. Absolutely, cancer is catching. Can Alzheimer's spread? Yeah, somebody can incubate and replicate misfolded proteins. Mycoplasma, mimicry, RNA replication. That's what RNA is. Messenger RNA. It mimics whatever is there. And that's also, the whole lengthening your telomeres is you're developing and you are integrating another immortal germline cell with its own cabinet, and you're merging in with the new information with the old information, and then eventually you become the new information and the old information goes to the wayside. And so maybe in 7 years or even 14 years or even 28 years, you could be a whole new person, and all your information that you have in your body was way different than the one before. And so yeah, you could actually evolve and change and be a whole different person with relatively the same phenotypical characteristics, years apart. But it's all a gradual process. It's something that has to happen simultaneously. And so it's what's called mycoplasma, RNA replication. And so if I ever get exposed, I cough out any misfolded proteins, poop it out, sneeze it out, blow my nose. Okay? And so, all the died suddenlies are those who are the weaker clones of some version of themselves somewhere out there in the world. And so you are in competition with some clone out there in the world who is relatively similar genetic copy in a different culture and geographical location, or even in the same continent. Okay? And so you are in competition with even your own immediate biological or adoptive family. You might love and get along with your family, but your microbes say something different. You are in the fight to the death unless you find a way a different way to relate to the people you respect. And that's why if you can be on the internet and go back and forth with them that way, but people don't know how to do that. They only know how to involve those people in face to face. They don't know how to interact on the internet. They don't even know how to write too much on the internet. That's why the difference between someone, the relationships, when you see people's capability of relationships, is through either their mind or through physical interaction. I'm more cerebral than I'm in physical interaction. I like to write and stuff and relate that way. But people that don't know how to relate to me through the written word, they know only how to relate to me through the physical. And if I don't want to deal with the physical, then I have no relationship with them because they can't go back and forth in an intellectual way on the internet unless it's something to do with some kind of activist stance or political stance or religious stance. Okay? And so then there's no relationship. And that's what sets apart those who will probably survive when they know how to relate to someone virtually than physically. Because physically you're in a microbial war, and it's a deadly war. And it takes a lot of energy and it destroys. But if you can have a relationship via virtually with an occasional hangout with a lot of air in between you, then you'll have a better chance in sustaining that kind of relationship versus a physical relationship. Because again, physical relationships are a fight to the death. It's microbe versus microbe. And so, yeah, if they must see you in person, like so many of them out there, you're outnumbered. There's no way. I can pretty much handle my husband. Anything more than that, I can't deal with. Not in this environment. And so I was saying the best of both worlds to live with someone who gives you space. If you can't live with someone, the best of both worlds is to be in society of people who don't live on top of you. And so every human needs their space to grow, develop, and to mature and learn. So no, I wouldn't want to live in an apartment complex. I wouldn't want to live with a bunch of roommates. I wouldn't want to live with people right next to me, on top of me. I want to live in a community where I know people are there, but they're not on top of me, breathing down my neck. And that's where people lose themselves, when they have people living on top of them, breathing down their neck, not letting them any kind of freedom. And so, yeah, the system is trying to clean out all the weaker versions of you, and only the strong will be left standing. And so I'm so sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I didn't do this. I just figured it out. Good luck to everyone out. Oh my God. Just think, one person or nobody or two people or five people in a family might survive climate change. There's no guarantee. Just do what you do and it will all come out in the wash. Your family is the experiment. Every single one of us. May the best man or woman win. Find a way to adapt or enjoy the life that you have, whatever's left. People think they're going to defeat the New World Order. I see it all over Facebook. Oh, we got to defeat the New World Order. No, sorry. They've tried even 300 years ago. There's no freaking way. Okay? This is bigger than you and me. Extremely. People have these archaic belief systems anyways. They're still living in the Bible times of 6,000 years ago. Well, the New World Order has evolved, and they are so advanced in their technology and in the psychology. There's no fucking way. If you're still living back in the Bible days trying to defeat the New World Order, you haven't even evolved. You haven't been on this earth long enough to understand what it is you're up against. Oh, I understood what I was up against when I watched the Boston bombing. Even if I can't even prove what Alex Jones was perpetrating at the time, or was trying to prove at the time. Okay? I know what I'm dealing with. I know who I'm doing and what I'm doing. I don't want to be too influential, and I can't prove anything out there as far as false flags or whatever. So there's no point in it. So now you just adapt and you find ways to characterize things correctly. And if you don't know how to characterize things correctly, then you'll fall into whatever religious belief system or activist belief system that if you do overstep your boundaries and become too influential, you get arrested and go to jail for making claims that are illegal, especially if you hold a license. And we have doctors out there that are holding licenses, making claims that are illegal, that then their followers are like, oh God, the system is trying to silence them. No, they're making illegal claims, saying that something is poison, something is the cause of this, this, and this. No, you are the one that's the weapon of mass destruction. You're the one that holds all these different mycoplasmic microbes that are so influential, causing then the turbo cancers in other people. And so you either have to hold yourself back and release your demons in a different way, and or stay away from other people who have so much diversity. So, and then release the demons. But it's not the therapies out there that are causing people's issues. It's the fact people are already too far gone. It's just a matter of time of when it's going to trigger. And again, the system has already figured out the physics and the chemistry and the biochemistry of every single therapy when it's used in its proper intent, for its proper intention. But again, like anything, there's no absolutes, there's no guarantees. There's always going to be side effects or unexpected outcomes that you've already accepted. People already accepted they want to die someday. And they want to treat their disease all the time. And there's warnings. You treat disease, you're going to have these things, even sudden death. That's why I'm not trying to treat disease. Because whenever you treat disease, that will also be the ultimate outcome for some people is sudden death. Whenever you treat disease. And so that's no different than in the therapies market, than people taking all their different prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs. I mean, they're not saying that it's going to cause sudden death, but you never know how that shit's going to happen as far as the cumulative effect. If it's like that, if an over-the-counter drug has a side effect of sudden death, they would pull that from the market. It wouldn't be FDA approved for some over-the-counter shit. That's a pharmaceutical grade thing if there's an actual side effect of sudden death. But people who have to get therapies to activate their immune system, they're already teetering on the precipice of sudden death anyways. It would just be a matter of time when it was going to trigger. And so virus equals my-co-plasma, basically co-infection mixing plasma. And that's when you're out there in the crowds of people, hanging out with your friends and family and cohorts and concerts and churches. People don't change. They're not going to change. So this will be interesting to see. And so I said, you are the clone. Clone equals doppelganger. Is a living person, mysterious, exact double. The word is German. See, and I'm thinking like German. German. And translates to the double walker or double goer. Mycoplasma RNA. There are probably 50 versions of you out there walking the population. Because somatic cells can only double itself 50 times. And you can only experiment at least 50 times with one cell and another cell. And you need more specimens. Once you exhaust that downline, then you develop another upline to develop another downline. That's why they wanted us to get married and produce children. They needed more specimens to experiment on. You only get 50 chances with one specimen. In a world of 8 billion people, soon to be 12.9 billion, or even a little bit less than that, that's not too far from the realm of possibility. And so now with the heat turned up, let the best man, strongest man, woman win. And that was always the intention many, many years ago, which is why you have all the great resets. All of us are clones of the past. That's what we are. And the reason why so much diversity is you don't want to have inbreeding. That weakens the genetic line. You want to have enough diversity to give the strength of that gene a way to strategize. See, when you're replicating or reproducing someone just like you, you weaken because now you've taken away energy, because in that energy conversion, that's thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics, when energy converts into whatever, like reproduces into another entity, an offspring, it loses resources. Okay? But if you're converting something that has more properties of protection and strategy and evolution, then that energy that's lost won't necessarily take away from that viability. But when you're reproducing yourself, okay, it's then you're weakening because there's nothing, you're not adding anything, you're losing more. So that's why then you must be exposed to other people to then take on then more strategy, evolution, new information, diversity. Okay, that's why we have so many diverse people out there, because human race would be extinct if one person just reproduced himself. They reproduce themselves out of existence. And so it's necessary to be in a world of diversity to give you the evolution. And that makes sense. And so may the best clone and prototype win. The Walking Dead, the Attack of the Clones, the zombie apocalypse. And so I knew none of us were that special. Okay? And so then I posted that thing about You Are a Clone from Weird Al Yankovic, who always copies other people's music, but does the different words. And then that's so perfect, you know? I think we are a clone. I think it's so funny. It was so appropriate. So mycoplasma, mimicry of survival. The question is, what are you mimicking and why? What behaviors and beliefs are you mimicking and why? Monarch programming. People think, oh, that's only Hollywood and certain people in the population. No, that's all of you. You're all a part of the monarch programming, some more than others, and it's programmed in different ways. Okay? So what behaviors and beliefs are you mimicking and why? Monarch programming. That's all of you. Not the Illuminati in Hollywood. You are the Illuminati. Trauma victims of your kids. All right? Because no, kids also torture their parents. Parents torturing their kids. Exes torturing each other. Governments torturing the people. People torturing the governments. Clergy torturing their flock, and the flock torturing the clergy, and the peers are torturing each other. Repeated behaviors like trauma victims of the trauma-based programming, mind control, monarch programming via politics, religion, science, sexuality, and orientation. And it's all mycoplasmas then copying it and making it stronger, more influential. And so that's why I showed the butterflies. And so this kid that died at 24, a former participant of Master Chef, aged 24, around the same age as Imhotep, has passed away due to a heart attack according to initial reports. Imhotepinization of our youth. Mature faster, realize potential sooner, die sooner and suddenly. And when was Imhotep born and died? Imhotep born 2667 BC to 2648 BC, 19 years old. A commoner by birth. Okay, so you see all these kids out there, they're commoners, right? They're cute, they're smart, and they're being shown, thrust out there in the public, like, oh, look, they're going to invent the next best thing to slice bread, right? And so, a commoner by birth, Imhotep's intelligence and determination enabled him to rise through the ranks to become one of Dozier's most trusted advisors, as well as the architect of Pharaoh's tomb, the Step Pyramid, and then also be the architect, the chemist, the first physician, and all of that, okay? Now you see these kids out there being used for those resources, and they're going to die suddenly once those resources get pulled, because the parents will ride the wave. And so then I'm looking like the word German. What is up with that? And then we have the Hitler thing and Hitler-esque and all the little Hitlers out there. So the Latin word Germania was used by the Romans to describe the areas beyond the Rhine where Germanic tribes settled. The Latin word Germany and Germania became the common words for Germans and Germany. The word Germain comes from the Latin word Germanus, which means relative or brother. Germanus came from the Proto-Indo-European root gen, which means give birth. And so the word German comes from the Latin ethnonym for a Germanic tribe. The word germ comes from the Latin word germinare, which means to sprout. The Germanic source of the word German is probably Gary man, which means spear man. The word germ comes from the Latin and German word German, which means sprout, bud, or offshoot. Some types of germs include bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, parasites. Some synonyms for germs include bug, disease, microbe, and microorganism. Okay, the evolution. Germans are evolution. The evolution of mankind. Okay? And so COVID is a result from a frequency that will activate your immune system to the level of the imbalances of influential bacteria. If you have 25 bacteria that are out of control, you actually have 50 bacteria that are out of control. The climate change activating the mycoplasma made the energy influential and exponential. And when people test positive for COVID, it's the PCR that tests the mimicry of the imbalances from the mycoplasma, and they can see how fast it replicated. Because when they're testing for it, the rate at which people develop it's because what they're testing for is the rate at which develops the volume which gives the numbers. It is the rate of replication which gives you the volume of infection. That's what they're testing for. RNA, how much is it replicating? Okay, and so there are two types of COVID-19 diagnostic tests. Molecular tests such as a polymerase chain reaction, PCR, and other nucleic acid amplification tests that they're doing even in China right now. NAATS tests which detect genetic material called RNA, from the virus. See, RNA, replicate, how fast is it replicating? The polymerase chain reaction is a method widely used to make millions to billions of copies of a specific DNA sample rapidly, allowing scientists to amplify a very small sample of DNA sufficiently to enable detailed study. PCR was invented in 1983 by American biochemist Carrie Moles at Cetus Corporation. And then you have virus. Vital Information Resource Under Siege is an acronym for virus. A virus is a type of malicious software malicious software like in your poop, that can damage your central processing unit, files, data, and software. Viruses can spread between computers and disrupt systems, causing operational issues such as data loss and leakage. And what are people right now dealing with? Data loss and leakage, okay? As far as the vaccines are concerned, they are preempting what you already would have been exposed to anyways. The school of thought is that a smaller exposure would give you a better chance in surviving a larger exposure inevitably. People will always be exposed to people. There is no guarantee in anything that's going to protect you. There's no guarantee in any protection, okay? There are no absolutes. I was told that by the Federal Trade Commission. And during climate change, all bets are off. There is nothing that will cure and treat COVID-19. The pharmaceuticals is what takes away the pain and suffering, but it's only temporary, and it doesn't always take away the pain all the time. You can't cure COVID-19. It's a new germline cell that's attempting to take over, and it's trying to take over, developing its own cabinet of somatic cells like a transition from one president to another. The downside of people misunderstanding what's going on is that they will treat themselves to death. All they're doing is developing new downlines for germline cells waiting to overthrow the host. That will work against them. It's just caused the body to have more influence and mimicry to be activated again by climate change. Just think of every exposure to a person, place, or thing or crowd as developing a marriage, a child, and then a downline, like a multi-level marketing pyramid scheme. Your downline are the offspring. Your upline is who you are accountable to, like your own parents. And your upline will work you to death to keep converting people into somatic cells. So you become the somatic cell to your upline. So when you have grandchildren, they're your downline. When you have parents, they're your upline. When you have great-grandparents, they're your upline. And so your great-grandparents are forcing you, and your grandparents and your parents are forcing people to work for them by developing grandbabies and babies and families. And that's what I'm saying. That's where the whole sexual slavery and the trafficking in families, because the uplines and the downlines forcing each other to have babies. And so as you become the germline cell to your downline, the intent is to be influential, to be an influential germline cell with so many somatic cells under your control. That's network marketing. And that was also huge 20 years ago with all these new gurus and motivational speakers attracting desperate people who want to get rich. And that's huge in the Mormon population. They have so many MLMs in the Mormon population because they have so many people. And so you have all these different, like prepaid legal back then, to insurance, to selling, clothing, to essential oils. You've seen it all the supplements market, and they're selling you everything under the sun. There's always some kind of charismatic guru, black, white, or Mexican, or some other type of race that people are like dying to mimic and emulate because they represent their culture, their lifestyle, their belief system. And of course, these charismatic motivational speakers have nice cars, big houses. And then the people who are in their downline are wanting to mimic them and listen to how they got their way up there. And some of them were just given that position because they were that motivational, but they didn't really develop a downline. They were just given that position to be a motivational speaker to then attract downlines of people. Okay, I've watched all of that in all these worlds of multi-level marketing. And guess who gets screwed? It's the downline, not the uplines. The uplines who have been given so much were then, and they're showing, oh yeah, I'm $100,000 million earner and all this other stuff. And yeah, they might have been because they have certain industries they're attached to, but some people were given that position to be the motivational speaker, to develop downlines because of his motivational speaking. And then that's the whole thing with Travis Alexander and Jody Arias. He came from nothing, and so he was very charismatic, developed a downline. And so given that opportunity, and she was dying to be his wife. And she converted to be a Mormon, and then when he said no, she killed him. Okay? And so that's the whole thing with MLMs. I stay away from all that shit. I'm done with that. And so That was huge 20 years ago with all these new gurus and motivational speakers attracting desperate people to want to get rich. In network marketing and multi-level marketing, an upline is a person who recruits others into a business. The upline also includes the people in the same line above the recruit. What is a downline in a business? It's direct selling. A downline is a group of network individuals who have joined a particular company or independent distributor or a representative, and they've done so under a sponsor. The sponsor is typically an existing distributor who has recruited and enrolled the new distributors into the business. And so every 3 a.m. I can feel the replication of those somatic cells, the downline that I've come in contact with because of somebody else who was another upline that we merged and developed a downline of people or somatic cells that I have to go and cough, sneeze, and blow my nose. And so if they would have tested me in the morning before I coughed, I would have tested positive. Okay. Once I release the demons, I would test negative. And so that's why I cough, sneeze, and blow my nose and release the poop the way I do. So I don't have a type of rate of volume of infection clogging up my arteries and capillaries. It also has a way to leave the body through my lymph nodes and other mucosal openings. And so extremism comes from mycoplasma mimicking that trauma, that behavior, that lifestyle, that belief system, even that sexuality or sexual orientation. It just takes one influence and then the influences become out of control. And that's why you get such polarized views. And that's why that's where you get all the diversity from. That's human and animal programming and plant programming. And so, God. Okay. All right. I'm not going to go. This is too much. This is so much. Okay. I'm almost done. Okay. I'm almost done. I'll get through it. It's not even that. Well, I'm not going to read all that, but I'll read. Okay. I'm almost done. Okay. Children come from the fertility of the memories of the mycoplasma. But once the mycoplasma becomes too influential based upon an imbalanced microbiome, children come out weaker and deficient and extreme. While it was okay in the earlier cycles like Imhotep offering his resources to the vat of knowledge in antiquity, modern day, the later cycles are suffering from broken DNA and missed connections. And you can only redouble somatic cells 50 times with all the innovation before the last offspring glitches like a lot. It is happening. Children are glitching from trauma and the aggressive, imbalanced mycoplasma replicating so fast. And so during an aggressive energy shift in their lifestyles, like parades and family and gatherings and concerts, church and food and diet assemblies are to be expected. Even those who are around 50, before 50, or after 50, they never had a strong infrastructure to handle their environment. They were born with major gut imbalances coupled with nature and nurture, and mycoplasma is opportunistic. It will mimic the imbalances and make them extremely aggressive, which is why you see all these school shootings and people hurting each other from the triggers in their gut. It is bad out there. I'm so sorry to be bearer of the bad news, which is why I'm saying if you have kids, elderly, or the sick, stay home this season. Don't risk it. If I'm staying home this season and I have a well-conditioned immune system that could suffer if I had to, imagine what the children, the elderly, and the sick must endure with so many people coughing and breathing on them. Imagine. And no one liked that comment. And so all the trauma-based programming influences the mycoplasma to replicate. All the trauma and cause extremism in sexuality, politics, religion, science, all the mycoplasma replicate memories called looping broken record. That was the 1960s, and the people channeled their extremism into art, sex, drugs, rock and roll, music, writing, rhetoric, religion, spirituality, activism, hunting humans, and of course all the diseases, which is why there's so much redundancy in the population, so many families of offspring programming in extremism and built for destruction, which was how Hitler came to power. The trauma and the mycoplasma became extremely influential and destructive. It's time for a reset. And so I said, I'm so sorry. I cannot do any more parties, Xmas or otherwise, Christmas or otherwise. I would blow up like a marshmallow. My immune system is extremely activated, and then I would suffer the next day releasing those demons. The environment is that accelerated. It's bad out there. When the climate changes or when my husband comes home and I respond a little bit with bacteria replicating, I know how aggressive it is in large crowds or in an enclosed space. I don't want to suffer. I just can't. I'll walk into a grocery store, maybe go out to eat for an hour or less. I still have to release those demons. I can't do what I did last summer. It was bad. I can't be around that many people, not anymore. It will take so much for me to release all that offspring from the exposure. And with this aggressive environment and the mycoplasma circulating, I don't even want to deal with it. This is not a popular concept, right? Because the tradition out there is everybody hang out together. So I'm telling you, I am the canary in the coal mine, and I know how aggressive it is out there. And I'm not so far gone that I don't care. Some people are so far gone that they don't care, and more power to them. Do they care? Well, maybe they do care, but maybe they have no control over it. So I suffered the last 7 years releasing those demons. I won't take them on again, ever again. That's the cross I must bear in this world. I won't sacrifice myself for other people. I still respect them, and I appreciate the energy, but I just can't. And if they want to interact with me, they can do it on the internet. But if they want me to go hang out with them, well, can we have them be happy medium and just internet? But no. If people don't do internet and they don't go on Facebook and they don't believe in the internet or don't like Facebook or the internet and whatever, then their only way to relate to people is in person. And then, okay, then I guess, whatever. And so, an in vitro mimic of in-cell salvation for protein folding studies. It was always the mycoplasma and the mother with contributions from the father. Every family is a petri dish or major information. Now it's time for the petri dish to be archived, and that's what the system is doing right now, and hopefully you survive it. Okay? And so what does it mean to be archived? To store historical records or documents in an archive. In computer technology, to store electronic information that you no longer need to use regularly. This software helps firms archive and retrieve emails. And so when you pass away, you already gave away all of your DNA to the medical holistic energy healing world. So they already have your DNA. They don't need you anymore. If you choose to be needed, then you'll find a way to survive. But if you choose not to, they already have everything. Now you have a choice. And so the movies were always referencing mimicry, bacteria, also known as mycoplasma, but never said it. We had to figure it out. And evolution is a must, or else you get extinction. People resist and they destroy themselves, and they blame somebody else and even attack them. And so all of your groups and associations and religions and family are basically mycoplasma mimicking each other, clones and cliques. Once we control this, how will this affect the genders? Would there still be disappearing Y chromosome like they have projected? We will find out. I'm not going to read all that. And then mycoplasma mimics. This is where I was discovering the mimicry thing and the clones and all that. Mycoplasma mimics. You attack mycoplasma, you attack yourself. You must be a good host. Bad hosts destroy themselves while trying to destroy the guests in their body, which is why everyone out there trying to destroy themselves end up in the morgue. They don't know how to treat the guests in their body, just like they don't know how to control their own children. Then the children go and steal from other people. That's called crime. Right now, in parts of my town, we have children who have not been controlled and trained, and their families attack them, and so they are destroying their community. The chaos inside of people are transferred to the chaos in your community. Climate change is the only way to control the life. Welcome to the future. Okay? And so what is a mimetic in biology? Remember mimes that copy and do all the things that mimes do? A non-peptide synthetic molecule that reproduces some features of a natural peptide. It may bind strongly to an antibody by placement of the same functional groups in the same relation to each other as are found in peptide antigen. Okay, so it's a type of remedy to go and temporarily commandeer the intentions of that antigen or antibody or whatever. And so mimicry occurs when one species of animal, the mimic, resembles another species that has easily recognizable characteristics. The model and the result deceives the potential predator, the dupe, that might otherwise capture and eat it. And that's chameleonic stuff, right? That's why I showed all those pictures that are real of those animals that look like leaves and stuff. And so why do people get organs removed, right? Mycoplasma mimicking already infected tissues, cannibalizing the host. Every removal of organs weakens your defense processes, which is why releasing the demons takes time. It is not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am type of release. There is no cure for mycoplasma. Your body and immune system needs all food to balance out all the gut bacteria it needs to function. And you only have 50 chances to redirect, according to Hayflick. No one has proved yet they can bypass the Hayflick limit. But I am attempting to make that claim via my world. And not everyone can do what I'm doing. Only you and your family and doctor can determine if you can handle all the pain and suffering and afford the time and food to do what I have done and I'm doing the last 7 years. Again, I'm a child of science and experiments. I am the guinea pig. I was the guinea pig. And if you don't have the proper support system and food supply and mental strength and physical strength, don't even bother attempting to do what I'm doing. Have the best life possible. And you saw how much I suffered the last 7 years, even the last 49 years. Can you handle that kind of suffering I went through, even more so relative to your predisposed issues? Thank you for your service. We thank you for your contribution. And this is the last thing I'm going to say before I get off here. 2023 was the indicator. What will you do different in 2024? If this year was not an indicator of how bad it will be next year, there's no one to blame. You brought on all the self-induced suffering. I'm just glad my husband is strong enough and can deal with the pain as well as myself. And I don't ever treat disease because it makes it stronger and more influential. And I don't use anything to speed up my immune system or slow it down. I just drink half a cup of coffee and that's it. But I don't do energy drinks or slow down drugs or alcohol. And mycoplasma does affect your pets too. Google the symptoms. By the way, there is no vaccine or remedy for mycoplasma. Once it is activated, all medicines make it stronger as the other bacteria in the body become more imbalanced, and the mycoplasma mimics the most influential colony-forming unit like followers on YouTube. Mycoplasma is like a follower of a guru and become radicalized via nature and nurture. Symptoms of mycoplasmosis include inflammation of several joints at the same time. For example, areas like your pet's knees, ankles, hips, or shoulders may show signs of inflammation or a buildup of fluid. Some other typical signs include long-term lethargy, difficulty moving around, fever, and signs of discomfort. Respiratory symptoms are the most common, but the bacteria also affect the reproductive and urinary system, and blood pathogens may cause anemia. Okay, so kennel dogs and dogs with weakened immune systems are more at risk. And so animals and humans keep infecting each other with these opportunistic infections that keep self-replicating, and it is a constant battle that one must feed and release to stay alive, which is why a lot of these animals are succumbing to climate change. The heat is activating the immune system to push it out as people keep trying to cork the genie back in the bottle, which is why the aging or obesity process in animals and humans after continuous treatments for infections and even surgeries. And people get the genie surgically taken out of their body, and then self-induced anorexia, as the human and animal loses the will to eat, developing even a waste and away process or becoming increasingly larger as the microbes keep replicating until blood vessels burst, died suddenly. And so right now, formerly obese people are so excited they are losing weight. But that train will run away and you will not get ahead of it. The environment is that aggressive. Skinny people age faster. Just look at the skinny people in your world. Watch them every day. Formerly obese people might look younger, but they might run the risk of blood vessels bursting because of the weight taxing the immune system and the vital organs. Everything's about balance. I don't ever want to be so skinny or so obese that I can't get ahead of it. That's why not everybody can do what I'm doing, because they will have to go through a lot of hurdles. But some of you have the ability to do what I'm doing, and you just need the awareness. I hope you have the strength to do what I'm doing. And that's it. Okay, so it's the mycoplasma that is mirroring all the imbalances. That's what's in your population. That's what's all the groups and the activism is. We have mycoplasma mimicking each other, being told what to believe in, what to say, what to do. And there's really not a lot of original thought out there because people are copying each other. Copycats. That's what copycats are. Whether it's a copycat crime or a copycat this or copycat that, that's what's going on. And so when you realize that that's what you're dealing with, is so many clones and copycats, and so much mycoplasma copycatting and mimicking imbalances, and people mimicking each other, mimicking the amount, then when you want to finally save your life, you have to get away from the crowds. The crowds are the mycoplasma, the copycats. The crowds are the clones, the cliques, even some of the families. And so that's why being alone is going to serve you better, mostly alone. And if you want to interact with people, do it through the internet. But you don't have to interact with people in face-to-face all the time. Sometimes it's nice because maybe, but even then, are you willing to pay for pay for that kind of energy that you'll be exposed to? See, here's the thing. Once the system slows things down and we're not in climate change anymore, I guess, I don't even know how that would look like, given that I've never experienced anything different than what's going on right now. It's like, this is climate change. What will it look like when it changes again? Will it be like before? I couldn't tell you. I mean, before we had all the glaciers. Now the glaciers are moving away and things are happening and whatever. And so it would be another freeze again. And then, I couldn't tell you. And so at this point, I would just assume the environment is not going to get any better. And I would even not assume that even by 2050, we'll see any kind of respite, because Africa has to go through their own climate change. And that's going to affect the rest of the world. Right now, Africa is given the opportunity to go and do what they do. What we did. Sexual revolution. Drug revolution. Women's rights. Religious revolution. Oh, God. All right. That's all I'm going to say right now. All right, bye.